morning, great morning, wonderful morning, spectacular morning, outstanding morning, magnificent morning, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious morning. Oh, yes. Again, the beautiful reminder of how we get to choose. Remember, you always have a choice. Write that in your notes again this morning. I always have a choice. And what is that choice, my wonderful, beautiful friend? Well, it's that choice of thought. Remember, no one can force you to think the thoughts you think. You're the one that gets to determine how you're going to think. And how you think most of the time is what gets externalized in your life. Yes, you become how you're thinking most of the time, not what you're thinking, how you're thinking. And how you're thinking is very important. Now grab onto that. See, that's the narrative that you get to engage with. It's all based from your choice. Now, let's dive into why we're here. We're diving into understanding how we think. Now, before we started this, I actually was perusing this wonderful masterpiece, Working with the Law by Raymond Hollywell. And in the Law of Compensation, which is a chapter in this book, there's a beautiful statement here. It's on page 113 if you have this book. And here he says something really important. If you are not succeeding, if you lack any good thing, look more closely to the cause. It's not outside, it's somewhere within. Oh my gosh, that's so good and so powerful. And it's actually a core truth. Think about that. Look more closely to the cause. It's not on the outside, it's somewhere within. See, your outer world, whatever that is a reflection of what's happening in your inner world. And that's what Raymond Hollywell is pointing out. And that's what's also being beautifully pointed out in what we've been studying here in the Master Key System by Charles Haanel. Now, if you don't have a copy of this book, make sure you do get a copy of it. Get this specific copy so that you can read along with us. And also, by the way, when you do have this book, don't keep it all nice and neat. Underline, put boxes around it, put hearts, take notes, mark it up. It'll do you a lot of good. It'll help to internalize it. All right, so with that being said, let's dive into that and also make sure you have your goal card with you. Wave your goal card, okay? Got your goal card, and use what we're sharing with you with this. Ready? Here we go. All right, so where we are in this masterpiece is on page 273. Now, isn't it interesting? I just read you something from Raymond Hollywell. Now look at what Charles Haanel says. The conditions with which we meet in the world without, in other words, the results, the outcomes, how much you earn, what you do for work, your lifestyle, all of that, correspond to the conditions which we find in the world within. Underline this. Put a big box around this. The conditions with which you meet in the world without, in other words, your outcomes, your results, correspond with the conditions which you find in the world within. Write this around this section. My outer world is a reflection of my inner world. Your outer world is a reflection, and it's a perfect reflection. And guess who has this ability to change what's happening in your inner world? You. Remember, you're the one that gets to decide whether or not what's in your inner world is going to continue or whether or not it's going to change or even improve. Now, here he goes a little bit further and states This is brought about by the law of attraction. How then shall we determine what is to enter with into the world within? So how do we determine what's going to be there? Well, now again, pay attention to this. And more importantly, use this. Whatever enters the mind through the senses or the objective mind will impress the mind and result in a mental image, which will become a pattern for the creative energies. Now, again, what's he pointing out here? He's pointing out whatever comes into your thinking mind, because that's what he's talking about. If held there, it'll get impressed into the subconscious mind. Now, these experiences are largely the result of environment, chance, past thinking, and other forms of negative thought, and must be, listen to this, and must be subjected to careful analysis before being entertained. Oh my gosh, this is huge. This is important. If you use this, it's going to help you tremendously. It's very important that you go through a careful analysis of what's entering into your mind. Because if you don't, it'll unfortunately be impressed into your subconscious mind. Another way to say this is that he's stating that you pay close attention to what you are making important. And a lot of us, unfortunately, have been conditioned to make the things that don't serve us important. But again, this is pointing out that you have a choice about what that's going to be. Now he goes further. On the other hand, we can form our own mental images through our own interior processes of thought, regardless of the thoughts of others, regardless of the exterior conditions, regardless of the environment of every kind. And it is by the exercise of this power that we can control our destiny, body, mind, and soul. Are you paying attention to what he's saying here? This is huge. This is important. What he's speaking of is your imagination. By him were all things made, and without him was not anything made that was made. That's a reference to God in you. That's a reference to your imagination. By imagination were all things made, and without imagination was not anything made that was made. Imagination's the starting point of all creation. And it's something that you can use to determine your destiny. Now, here, when you dissect this even further, he's pointing out that there are two ways images go onto the screen of your mind. One is through the senses, which is how a lot of our beliefs have been formed. And the other one is by using it ourselves to the exclusion of what has come through our senses. And it's the latter that will deliver the freedom you seek. Now, really engage with that. Think about that. You can choose to imagine great things for yourself or just continue on with the patterns of the influence that other people have placed in you. See, the choice is yours. You can either be a slave to your imaginings or a master of your imagination. And again, it's the latter that will deliver the freedom you seek. You want to earn more, you have to imagine yourself earning more. And then from there, be loyal to that unseen reality. But you're not going to be able to deliver that if you're constantly involved with the lack of the limitation. It's that phrase that I'm constantly sharing with you, that you're never going to be able to get what you want if you're focusing from what you don't want. And that's what he's pointing out here. And that's extremely important for you to use and to apply. Now, before we go further, if you're watching this live on social media, this beginning part, if you'd love to continue diving deeper into these beautiful principles and truths, then go to elevitality.com and register for Master Your Mind. Now, let's go further.